Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Reid. This is Band in the Bronx. We're back for one more episode here today, but this is a bit of a special episode because we have someone on today that is not only a heavy hitter in New York politics, but is also someone who I consider a very good friend, somebody who actually helped me get my start in this whole thing. And he is a Marine veteran. He is the vice chairman of the Bronx County Conservative Party and a general good guy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce Mr. Gonzalo Duran.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. The introduction, it's one of the best ones I've ever had.
Well, I certainly try. But most of any skill that I've developed, it's only because a guy named Gonzalo Duran once gave me the opportunity to, get in front of people and say what I wanted to say. We were actually just discussing off camera how when I first got involved, I wanted to be more behind the scenes. But this guy pushed me, and now here I am in front of the camera. So it's pretty incredible. So thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. And I used to be a staple in the BronxNet, and then all of a sudden, when I changed parties, it became less and less.
Really? Are you suggesting that there's Democrat bias in the city?
I don't want to say in that fashion, but I will say that not a lot of representation comes from the Bronx Conservative parties. So.
No, well, that's understandable. Well, let's get right into it. I want to ask you a question right off the bat. So when we met, you were and still are the vice chairman of the Bronx County Conservative Party, one of the most active political organizations in the borough, I would say, if not the most, maybe almost up to par with the Bronx Caucus, but not quite. No, that's just a joke. You guys paved the path for us to walk on. So as vice chairman, right? I mean, the question is, before the last election in November, Trump won. There seemed to have been a lot of momentum coming out of the Bronx County Conservative Party. He won, and then it kind of fizzled out. So my question is, from your position as vice chair, what went wrong, if anything at all, from your perspective?
Well, I don't see it as anything going wrong, but, with Trump winning his presidency, I think people assume that it would automatically cascade down. So he won his presidency, but he didn't win New York. Because he didn't win New York, the down ballot numbers didn't reflect what we were hoping for. And, we maybe gained a couple percentages here and there compared to the previous years. So, the Bronx didn't win any seats last year. And how do you go about with doing the same momentum without the same backing or influence that was coming beforehand? Mm-hmm. Now, I think there could have been a lot of things done differently that would have helped, like maybe the parties being present during Trump's visit to the Bronx. That's one. Two, more involvement. Maybe some of the candidates would have been presented. We had the ability for 3 congressional candidates to be up front and center during that time period, but they didn't get that opportunity. But right now, I'm more focused on how do we get the candidates and the community re-engaged, even without somebody like Trump backing or pushing us.
Good. I mean, you're right about that sort of idea that this momentum was going to cascade. I don't see it so much as, a natural occurrence. I think it has more to do with no one striking the iron while it was hot than it just dissipating by itself. I think there could have been more initiative from the conservative Republican parties, not just of the Bronx, but of the city, to sort of, incentivize people to look more into it. Because, like I said, there's a huge base, I believe, of potential Republican conservative voters. And it seemed like the Trump rally in Crotona was sort of a platter to the GOP chairs in the counties, and they kind of looked at it and said, fuck off. They were not interested. And I don't,
in those terms, I can't speak on that. But once again, the parties, I can't speak about the higher-ups, but let's say the Bronx parties weren't involved in anything with it. And that doesn't mean anything that it wasn't planned out or there's any mysterious things going on. What I would say is, we can learn from that mistake and try to build up for it. And once again, I'm focused more on how can we increase, because, Trump winning has given us a leg up in a lot of things. What it hasn't done is, his policies currently, I backed him. I've supported him since day one. But the way he's rolled it out has made it hard for candidates this election cycle to get petitions signed, to get some of them rallied up, to get donations, to get, because the South Bronx is a little different. The Bronx in general is a little different than many of the counties or the places outside of New York City. So it's a different demographic, especially when this is the Democratic stronghold in the nation.
Yes, I agree with you. And it seems like in conversations I've had with conservatives, Republicans at any level, they seem to be under the impression that there's this sort of one-size-fits-all method to it. And you can't outreach to Republicans in the Bronx the same way you would in Iowa or Kentucky.
No.
And, it's interesting that you bring up the point, that Trump winning did help in many ways, but also not so much in others. But again, there's only so much the president can do. He can't walk people by the hand. You could lead the camel to water, or the horse to water, whatever the thing is.
The horse to water.
Yeah, lead the horse to water. So again, I try to hold people's feet to the fire, and I put the blame far more on GOP chairs in the boroughs than anybody else, because it's their arena. You know what I mean?
And it's no secret that many candidates feel that they haven't gotten the support from the higher ups. There's no secret. Everybody knows that. It's in articles and people talk about it very publicly.
Yes.
What I try to focus on is what can, those things that we're not getting from them, how can we do it ourselves? One, this show is an opportunity right there. And I'm not coming with emotions or feelings. I'm telling hard data. For myself, when I joined the Conservative Party, within 3 months I became a district leader for the 79th district. Within 3 months after that, I became the vice chairman. I told them when I was going to come in, I would help increase the numbers, help create activities, get more candidates, fill the vacancies. And, they blew me off in the beginning. They were like, yeah, sure, because I'm sure they hear it all the time. But when they found out that I was serious, within those time frames, the Conservative Party has made, for the Bronx at least, have made huge strides. So much so that I think we're outpacing all the other boroughs in New York City.
Now, that's interesting you bring that up because, let's be honest, you've been the most visible figure in the Conservative Party here in the Bronx. So Pat McManus, who is the chairman of the Bronx County Conservative Party, my question is, and listen, I've met him before, he's a nice guy. Why is it that his name is on the door when it's you who's doing the work? Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are things he's doing I don't see. But shouldn't it be your name on the door, being that you're the one who's the most active?
If you look at it that way, I always tell people this scenario. We don't think about all the owners or the coaches for the Bulls back in the day, right? It was Jordan. Jordan was the MVP, and he's the one that the team came across to help out, and he made the team better, and he's the champion, and he's a success from there. Now, by no means am I saying at that level, but once again, I've been the most active. If you look at the history, we've done, I've helped mastermind some of the biggest events for conservatism, Republican and conservatives in the Bronx. Some of these events have been outshined of New York City stuff, not to the level of Trump coming to the office, but, in between that middle grace area. Pat has, held the reins for years before I came in.
Pat McManus.
Pat McManus, the chairman of the party. He held the reins and he built a solid foundation. What he needed was more active candidates or individuals that were more dedicated. So where I am, former United States Marine Sergeant, Iraq veteran, nonprofit leader, etc. These are the skill sets that I bring to the table, and I've done my best to find other people with those skill sets. So, for the time being, I'm happy with him being the chairman, because on the end of the day, he's getting phone calls that I don't want to have to deal with on top of that. So.
Yes, of course. Well, that's good because, there is some talk of the town that some people are on the out. So let me ask you a question. We have Mike Rendino, chairman of the Bronx GOP. Pat McManus is the chairman of the Bronx County Conservative Party. You're running for public advocate. When you win, will we see those two at your victory party?
I have no doubt that they would be. And I'm sure they would be the biggest people yelling, you did a great job, Gonzalo. And each one has done their part in getting me to where I am today. There's no doubt that I believe that their goal is for someone to win in office. Now, with Christy Marmorato winning city council, that's a win for the Republicans. I believe within the next 4 years, especially with Trump in office, there's a possibility for a conservative candidate to win office in the coming years. I would hope that it would be me, but I have no problem leading for the next person to take charge if they need to.
So what you're doing is you're not only building yourself an empire, but a path for others who come along so that they have something to build on top of. Because that's very rare, I'm noticing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gatekeepers in this game, right? And we'll talk more about those gatekeepers after this quick commercial break. What contributes to young people being discouraged from entering politics? The old guard, the gatekeepers, who, for whatever reason, want to use people and milk them for what they have and then sort of dispose of them after so that they could take all the credit. That's what it seemed like from my perspective. It worked out, so I'm not as bitter as I could be. But I want to get your perspective on that and what you think about that.
Well, I would say, you were an intricate part of it. I mean, we were hand in hand pushing everything that out there. So, I never see what I should get on one particular thing. I'm always thinking about the next two projects ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So for me, although it was one of the biggest events that we've done, I was already thinking about the next project.
Sure.
But what you're saying right there is what a lot of individuals, that's why they leave so disgruntled regarding the party. Because if it wasn't, then you'd see more candidates running on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And then, but you see them transfer to different parties, or they go become consultants, or they do some other project, and they say, you know what, I got better things to do in my time.
Sure.
Than, because this is a volunteer positions that we're in. So, and we don't make any money or get any limelight unless we win. Mm-hmm. So where do we go from once? Now, us trying to get these things, accomplishments done, we're not seeing the accolades in the bottom end. Like you would think, and how far does it go? Not only do we hold some of the biggest events in the Bronx, but let's say in the Bronx itself, the Bronx Conservative Party, we are the only conservative county that's putting out candidates on a multiple. Last year we had, out of 21 legislative positions, we put up 18. This year, out of 13, I think we have 12, or it's vice versa. We've helped increase the party by over 15% borough-wide each year since then. But do you see any recognition and stuff like that? Do you see any, hey, come up, let's do a speech and somewhere? No, but me particularly, I focus my attention, instead of what I'm not getting from the higher ups, I said, you know what, let me get more candidates the ability to get visibility in television, journalism, events, so that they can prepare themselves for contributions and to have the ability to have good campaigns so that they have an opportunity to say that they ran a real race.
So to the next generation of Republicans and conservatives trying to get their foot in the door and get it slammed out, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm going to backtrack this a little bit. Let's say for the Conservative Party, because I can say 100% for that one. The Conservative Party began for the New York State, which is one of the only ones in the nation that's recognized in that level. Started in 1962. So if you look at it, maybe 30, 40, most people joined in that time period during their 30s and 40s, right?
Yes.
Right now, they're dying off. They need to be replaced. So my thing is we need to recruit the younger generation, and that's why I look at the New York Young Republicans as a great starting point. We've worked hand in hand. We've done projects together. I can't say that there hasn't been a major function that I've held without the support of the Young Republicans. I even have their endorsement running for New York Public Advocate, which is, I believe, I'm the only conservative candidate to have something like that. So what would I tell the next generation coming up? There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the people that needs that were in office now, the ones that hold the power right now, what we're doing is not enough. We need to do more.
I agree.
So if you're coming in, be prepared to do even more than we are.
Yes, no, I couldn't agree more. The man is telling me we're pressed for time, so I have a little, not a game, I guess you would call it a game I want to play. I'm going to say a name, and you're going to tell me the first word that pops up in your head when you say it. We're going to try to do this as fast as we can. Christy Marmorato.
The next hope for the Bronx.
Let's hope. Tyreek Goodman.
The next Malcolm X.
Curtis Lewa.
The next mayor of New York City.
Joanne Areola.
A firecracker.
AOC.
Where you been? Where are you?
Donald Trump.
Keep it going strong. Don't let them say anything bad about you. Just keep on going strong.
Stefano Forte.
The man with a mission.
That he is. Ina Vernikov.
I don't know her too well.
Okay. Christopher Reid.
My soon to be my hero.
Very good. Thank you for that. So let me ask you this. We talked about the Conservative Party. We talked about the GOP, whatever there is to talk about there. So let's imagine tomorrow you're in full control of whichever party. What do you do next? And what do you plan? What would you bring in and what would you kick out?
So if I had that position, which I am not looking forward to if I did, would be to focus on increasing our recruiting. I think that's the number one thing that we need to focus on, because we will not have any success unless we increase our numbers. Then on top of that, we need to push out more community activities. The people don't feel secure in saying that they're Republicans or conservatives, or maybe that they're more right-leaning or common sense Democrats. Until that happens, then we're going to have people that are afraid to speak publicly, people that to come out to vote, and people to change up or update their registration.
Is this a similar tactic that you would utilize when you win city public advocate?
So that's something that I've done to not only run in my campaigns, but what I've done in my life. I've dedicated the last 2 years to the Conservative Party, and I'm proud to say that I am a conservative. I'm conservative and proud, and that I've helped increase our numbers across the board, filled vacancies. I'm running for offices, and I'm showing people that you can be outspoken and still be successful in your careers and walk down the street with pride and not maybe get heckled. Now, the way that you go about it, it's everybody's decision how they do it. But me specifically, what I would say is there are lots of individuals like me that are just regular folks trying to make it through, and they're just moderates at the end of the day.
We're glad to have them. There's a lot of extremists out there. In my opinion, not enough right wing, but there's a lot of extremists. So we need guys like you to kind of, be that balance. So big picture, right? Can the local GOP, conservative parties here in the boroughs, can they be structured and saved, or should we scrap it and start over fresh?
So I honestly think that we have a pretty good foundation for the Republicans and the conservatives. What we need to do is same thing that I've been trying to repeat, not only here but to them and to the candidates. We need to focus on increasing our numbers, getting more activities out there, and being more vocally in a more positive sense. And whichever way you want to do it, if you want to be far right or you want to be moderate, me particularly, I think if I were to win city council or public advocate for New York City, then it would be a good deterrent to say to the naysayers that not somebody like me or somebody like us can get into that type of position. Now, with somebody in that level, then we can balance out, the Democrats from the left and the right.
Okay. Now, do you believe that the GOP intentionally avoids winning because it would mean they actually have to do the work or not get the pay cut from the back room? Like, what do you think that is?
So, once again, it's no secret that a lot of candidates and individuals and organizations think that way. And I'm not going to say that that's not at any level, because corruption is in every form, in every level, in every party, in every situation like that. If you see somebody working with me or somebody that is standing around me, I can say that those are the people that I have around me that I believe have good intentions, that are working hard, and that have a goal to make New York City and the country better.
So are they losing intentionally?
I don't want to say intentionally, maybe some factors, maybe in some capacity, but...
I mean, there's no doubt that there are many cases, I was taught, where it does pay to come in second, right?
Yes.
Yes. That's just the way it is.
So can we change that? How do we change that? The individuals that are in power right now, the same way that I say that we need to break down the Democratic Party, we also need to break down our own party and the higher-ups. But once again, we're at a time frame where that's possible right now with the next generation coming in.
Now, speaking of next generation, starting over fresh, by many metrics, the New York Young Republican Club has become the new face of urban conservatism in New York City. Should they be backed more than current New York City Republican regime, or should we still keep them on the outskirts just when we need them?
Well, for me, I don't think in those terms, because
Okay.
I've helped New York Republicans running for office, and I've helped regular faction or main party candidates run for office as well. Me, I look at who wants it more and who's ready and who's determined to do it, and then that's where I get my back into.
Okay, so the answer is yes. We should back the New York Young Republican Club.
Look, if there's a New York Republican that wants to run, he's willing to do the work, then I have no reason not to help him or want to help him.
Well, they have a boatload of those. But we do need to do a little bit more manhunting here in the Bronx for candidates. That's what I think, at least. All right. Well, we're almost out of time here, so I want to ask one last question. I'm going to look here on my notes here for the most controversial question that I could find.
You got something more controversial?
Okay. So if you were public advocate during the Black Lives Matter riots or COVID lockdowns, what would you have done differently?
That's a tough one, because we're going through a national crisis. Honestly, I don't even know what the public advocate did during that time period.
Not very much, apparently.
So I would say that I would try to have done more cooperation with community members, because the reason why I think a lot of, let's say, the destruction that happened was because people didn't know what to do, what outlets to follow, the voice of a particular leader. Somebody like me, I just told you the things that I've done, the way I've been able to mitigate a lot of things,
Yes.
controversies and situations that come up. I think if I was put in that position, what I would have done was try to be, I don't want to say the voice, but listen to the people and then try to take action where I could in different things. Now, somebody like me, if you put me into office, I will dedicate my whole life to it. Everything, every ounce of energy, because I know how important it would be, not only for somebody like me to be in that type of position, but to say that I want to make New York City better than when I leave it. So if I have to be the bad guy that makes policy changes that people don't like, but it helps the city, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to be the bad guy. I'm willing to kill myself in this job opportunity. That's something that I don't think these other individuals, these incumbents are realizing. So that's what I would do.
Well, I have no doubt at all that you're going to accomplish just that. And when I first started working for you, I came up with a little thing. Duran's your man. And I think that that's the best way to end this here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you support Gonzalo Duran, and make sure you vote Republican. God bless America, and God bless President Donald John Trump. Thank you very much.